Hi, my name is Darlene Carman.
And I'm Doug Carman.
Welcome to the show. Dr. Barry Vissell and nurse therapist Joyce Vissell have helped many thousands of people throughout their workshops and counseling practice since 1975. Their latest book, A Mother's Final Gift, is an inside story and a look at how a family unites together to care for an elderly family member until her passing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you,
Doug.
It's a pleasure.
May I ask, what is the main message of the book, A Mother's Gift, Final Gift?
The main message, my mother felt from the time she was a child, really, that death would be the greatest adventure that she would have. And she had this very strong feeling that her Creator would save the very best for last. And so the message of this book is about the greatest journey. And for the last 2 weeks of my mother's life, as she was dying, she was as much in this world as the world that she was going into, and she was able to relate very clearly everything that she was seeing and hearing and experiencing. And that's really the main message, is that death can be a very amazing experience. And many people feel that when they're dying, they would be a burden to their families. And in fact, what happened was that this was one of the most beautiful gifts that she gave, both to Barry and I and our 3 children.
Now, your 3 children, grown children, actually helped contribute to the writing of the book. Can you introduce them for us? Doug, you have a picture?
We brought a picture, yeah.
Let me hold this up.
Yeah. So there's Joyce's mother in the middle, and on the left is our oldest daughter, Rami. Above is our son, John, who at the time was 17. And our other daughter, middle daughter, Mira, on the right. All of us came together because it was Joyce's mom's wish that she'd be right there with us and that we celebrate her transition. And it was hard. It wasn't easy to do that. The kids were, sometimes sad. Mm-hmm. Their grandma was dying, and yet we all got together, and wow, did we learn a lot by honoring her wish to stay at home and to just celebrate her transition, her journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were only 27 years old when your mother came to you with her wishes about how she wanted to spend her, her final days. How'd that conversation go? That's kind of an in-depth kind of.
It was. We had just moved to California.
Here's the picture too.
We're both from the East Coast.
Oh, I have.
And my mother came here from Buffalo, New York, where she lived, and she said that she wanted to sit with me to have a very important conversation.
And that's an actual picture of that. And I happened to take a picture of that.
Yes.
There's a picture in the book that I want the audience to see.
She was only 57 at the time, in excellent health, golfing all the time. And
only 57?
And she sat me down and she said, when it's my turn to die, I want you to be excited for me, because I feel this will be my greatest adventure. And I was shocked. I mean, who could possibly be excited for their mother to die? And I told her, I said, this is absolutely impossible. And she said, but it's my greatest wish. and I feel that you will find a way to do this for me.
And that took a long time, right? So when you finally decided to honor her wishes, how did the family respond, and when did you decide?
In the last year of her life, when it became evident that her body was starting to shut down, she was declining quite rapidly. And I talked to, Barry's known this all along, but I talked to our children, and they, of course, were shocked at first, too. But we all decided that we could do this. And it actually, what seemed to be something that would be really difficult, it actually wasn't, because day by day, it became more and more inspiring as she became more and more excited. She was seeing and experiencing so much. And each morning when we'd wake up, we would wonder, what's going to happen today? And every day was different. And every day was exciting in a very special way.
Mm.
Well, you know, nowadays, everybody thinks of a convalescent hospital when their parents get older, and of all the difficulties there is involved in helping them and caring for them. And I kind of think back in my own childhood and my own family, we never thought of that, or it was never even, I guess we just felt that our grandparents were going to come and live with us, and we'd take care of them, and which we did. The family, we had both parents, or a grandmother on one side, and my father's parents on the other, and they came, and we took care of them. Yeah. But nobody ever thought about it. It was a difficulty for the family. I was young, going to school. Both my parents worked, and that was unusual in the early 50s and late 40s that both parents worked. But mine were in a financial situation where they had to both work, and so it was my responsibility to come home and take care of my grandfather with my grandmother, because she couldn't move him. He had had a stroke and was virtually becoming a vegetable.
Yes, so there's something that happened between the time you're talking about and now, where death has become more and more hidden from families, and so, you know, old people are put away out of sight. And so another reason we wrote this book is to reverse that, you know, and to start, really, we're trying to bring in a whole new movement where dying can happen right at home, and where you can it's not just that we took care of Louise, she took care of us by her dying. And that's why the title of the book, A Mother's Final Gift, it was such a beautiful gift she gave to us by just dying with such grace and dignity. And it wasn't always, sometimes it was messy and inconvenient, and we changed diapers, and it was, you know, and she had pain. But her goal of dying, you know, with all of us there and celebrating it, that was the big thing.
At least they have the pens now. I think they didn't have it back in the old days. I remember having to do that.
I got really good at changing the pens.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing, because yes, it was a lot of time, but then when she passed, we all had such a beautiful feeling, and this continues. It's been 4 years now, and there aren't regrets. None of us have regrets, because we know that we gave her so much love, and we were able to help her fulfill her final wish.
Well, she was so active, very, very busy in the community. She had her own project. She was very independent. She seemed to just know what she wanted throughout life. You know, even when she was passing, she knew what she wanted.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think most people have an idea or have a clue what, I mean, well, you guys probably do.
Yeah. Do you know one of the things she wanted was when she requested, when she was taking her last breaths, she wanted Joyce to have already queued up the Hallelujah chorus from Handel's Messiah. You know, hallelujah, hallelujah. That's what she wanted as she was taking her last breath.
It's a great attitude. I would imagine most people wouldn't. I just had a thought came to my mind. You counsel a lot of couples,
Yeah.
and I imagine with they have maybe their difficulties. Do they ever think about the taking in their parents, or do they ever talk to you about that, or feel that it's something they have to do, or they don't want to get involved with? And how do they, so they don't feel guilty?
If they have any hesitancy, we have them read the book. And it really inspires people.
Yes. Well, it does. It's not. Some people might think, "Oh, the subject is depressing," and it's not. It's so well written. The humor is very good, and it takes you through the process. I was very much interested in the dying process itself, because I could relate to some of my own mother dying, and some of what I witnessed, I didn't really understand, but after I read the book, I understood more. It's amazing, and you explain that very well.
Thank you.
And so that was very insightful, because when you go to visit someone and they kind of are busy in another world, so to speak, and you interrupt them, and they kind of let you know that you're interrupting something. We didn't know how to handle that. And so we actually said, well, go back to your visit, we'll come back. We didn't really know what was happening, but we knew that she was definitely busy with company. So now I understand after, we talked about it after we would leave the visit, but we didn't really know. So
whereas the difference is Joyce sat there with her pen and paper
and
took notes about everything.
And see, if I recall, I'm trying to remember, you didn't plan to write this book.
No. But it just became very clear to me after she passed that I wanted everyone to know and be able to gain the lessons that we gained from this experience.
I do that with journals too, and I don't know why I keep them. It's always, well, it'll go into a book one day, and maybe it will. But in other words, if I have found with journals, if you don't write them down, you're not going to remember. It's going to get fuzzy on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I always recommend that to everybody, to do that. So what were some of the more difficult challenges that you faced, that stand out? I mean, it's so vast. I know it could go anywhere.
Well, the first challenge is that it became overwhelming as my mom was declining more and more. And what we didn't know is that hospice is an amazing resource. We always thought that hospice is called in maybe a week or two before a person dies.
Yes.
But hospice will come as a person starts to decline. Sometimes hospice is with a patient even for a year or two. So we finally called hospice in 4 months before my mother died, and that made all the difference. We had a nurse that came every week, a social worker that came every week. We had an aide that came from starting at 3 times and towards the end every single morning. And then we had a volunteer that came and took her places and brought a lot of joy into her life. And so it was like we were trying to hold up this big table by ourselves, and hospice came with many legs and freed us of all the medical responsibility and allowed us just to be with her in a heartfelt way.
Well, I think also a donation goes from the proceeds from the book. Yes. And you speak very highly of them, and I've heard very good reports. And if I understand correctly, I read recently, you can have hospice come in. If the person gets better, they back off, and then they can come back again.
Yes, that's right.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hospice.
A lot.
Yes.
Yeah, like Joyce said, it's the feeling that the person has to be actually dying, taking
Yes.
their last breath.
It's not true.
It's not true.
Not true.
If there's any decline, even like weight loss or physical or mental decline, they come in.
Yeah. And
And
they
they help
came at a
you.
time when you really needed them. You were
Yeah.
just the weight, I mean, a family and your work.
Yes. yeah.
And you're away quite a bit too, I imagine. That makes it.
Yeah.
You have your
Well, probably not
your
during that
occupation
year. You weren't
Not
away
that-
that much.
not that much.
requires you to travel. So
Yes.
Yeah.
that would be a definite burden. So they've been
Yeah.
able, if they filled in that gap.
They did. They
It's
did.
just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
It made all the difference.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned from caring for her in her final year?
Start with that?
Yeah. For me, being a doctor, I've been around death a lot. But this was my first experience with really being with the dying process rather than just death.
Watching
Watching and feeling. You know, and for me, you know, I have this vivid memory, okay, of at some point in the last weeks when Louise was she was in her bed and she couldn't move very much. And I would be coming from next door in my office and I'd run over to check on her, and just walking in the room, I'd be hit with this powerful peace. Just, it's an energy of a person dying. There's nothing else going on. It's not about busyness it's just this presence of profound here. And so I'd sit and I'd look into her eyes and she would just look through me like it was being with the highest love. And I was so aware looking into her eyes of how busy my mind was and racing with all the things we do, that I consciously had to let go and take some deep breaths and receive the gift of what she was offering. And it was profound. I might only be there 10 minutes, and then when I'd leave, I'd feel like I could dance.
Wow.
It was just like there was a light transmitted to me. It's kind of like, have you been to a birth? It's the same energy.
Yes, I have been.
It's so
Unbelievable.
but death is the same thing, and I didn't know that.
I don't know that either.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Okay, but it can be. It can be. And so I would say that was probably my greatest gift. What would you say?
The same.
What do you feel now? So it's been a while. So
Yeah.
do you still feel that love and that support, or surrounded by love from her?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's having her be at home with us, and the fact that we did give her so much love is just a tremendous comfort. I think I'll have it the rest of my life, and I don't have any regrets, and our children don't either.
Oh, they've all followed your lead into the medical field now. I don't think you mentioned that in the introduction of your kids, but I mean, they're just following what you're doing and beyond, maybe, I don't know.
Probably beyond, because
Yeah.
that's what our kids do. They go past us.
Really?
Yeah,
New
I know
horizons
our
to reach.
Right. So our you should be holding this.
Yeah.
So our oldest, Rami, got her PhD in clinical psychology.
Wow.
I wanted to just say a word
Yeah,
about
go
that.
ahead.
She got her PhD, and she was just starting into her practice, and she stopped quite a bit of it so she could just be there for her grandmother, especially
Yes.
in the last 6 months. And she received a lot of criticism. People told her she wasn't really living her life, and she wasn't focusing on her career. And she feels that she got the best education just being with her grandmother, that's the best thing that she could do for her career.
You both got criticism.
Yes,
from
we
doing.
did.
Can you, what did you say to people that would say things like this to you? Why are you doing this? You should be putting her into a home.
Exactly.
How did you respond to that? I don't know how I would handle that. How did you respond to that?
Well, you know, I mean, I understand why they feel that way, because it was a huge commitment. You know, it wasn't, it required, especially for Joyce, it required full-time concentration. And so her friends are saying, you know, that's what these homes are for. You know, they can do all the work for you. But it didn't feel right.
No.
And I'm so grateful, a thousand million times. I'm so grateful that we kept her at home. The inconvenience on us is so minor compared to the huge gift that we received. Just being able to be there and care for her ourselves, do it ourselves in such a loving way.
Another real gift that she gave us was because she was having very clear, vivid experiences on the other side. You know, she all of her siblings, how many siblings?
7.
7 siblings who had died before her, and her husband who died before her. She would have these deep conversations with them, and we of course would hear only one side. But like, there's several stories in the book.
Well, that brings me to some. I forgot to add. Oh,
yes,
my
about the
favorite
driver's
part,
license.
Yeah. My favorite part in the whole book was when she's blaming you for taking away her driver's license. Recap that story for us.
Yes.
Well, she was a good driver up until age 89. She drove to church and she drove to the beach, and to the supermarket. She never went on the freeway or, you know. But she was a good little driver in her little red car. Drove really slow, and then she wasn't a good driver, and it was a police person that brought it to our attention first, and this woman said that either we take away her license or she would take away her license. And so I talked with her, and I set up rides for church and walks to the beach and going to the supermarket. So everything was set up very nicely. And she could not accept that. And
That was very funny.
she kept making up stories. She didn't want to tell her friends that it took away her license, so she kept making up stories that I was so unfair, that she was a good driver and I took away her license. So I had her minister talk with her.
And it's not that she made up stories consciously. She remembered it a little different.
Just a little bit different.
I had Barry talk with her. I had my brother, who has a lot of authority in her life, and she would listen, but then she'd go back to her feeling that it just wasn't fair, and I felt that she might die with this feeling that I had taken away her license unfairly. And 2 weeks before she passed, she had her first visit from my dad, and he must have asked her, is there anything that you're not at peace with? Yeah. Because she said, yes, there is something I'm not at peace with. Why did Joyce take away my driver's license? And there was a long...
It was a big thing.
There was a long silence, and then she said, oh, now I get it. And then he must have said something, because she said, you're right, I need to apologize. And she did, and she never mentioned it again. But
I love that story.
I know that nobody could get across to her except her husband, who was always able to communicate with her.
Oh.
Well, I have a question. You have a different perspective now on death, and
We do.
my question is, why is the denial of death so prevalent in our society?
I know.
You know,
We've come up with this. It's really it's a syndrome, DOD, denial of death, and it's prevalent in all of civilized, quote, civilized cultures. You know, people are terrified. They're afraid. They're afraid of death. And, you know, it's gotten fostered, like I said before, you know, with hiding death, you know, with dying people being hidden away in hospitals or institutions.
Yeah, don't.
Whereas in, for example, indigenous cultures all around the world, where the dying, they're right there in the family, there's not the denial of death.
Yeah.
You see, it's right there. It's part of life.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we're hoping that's one of our missions with this book, is to reverse this denial of death and let people know it's part of life, not just part of it, but a beautiful part. Can be.
Yeah, and through your organization, sharedheart.org, do you have a program that's centered for death or to help people? Do you have a workshop or something that, it's a good idea?
It's a great idea.
You're welcome.
Our work right now, in our workshops, and of course we do also personal counseling, it comes up every time, you know, in every workshop, because, you know, we're facing our mortality.
Yes.
And so we don't have a workshop just for denial.
But it's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
We're just about out of time, but I wanted to show this picture of her. And how old is she here?
She's probably 87, maybe.
Can you get me that other picture, Doug?
Yeah.
Can you take that? And
She's probably 20 there.
and this is
The reason that I love the younger picture so much is that that's the way she looked when she died.
Yes.
her face.
Yes,
Yes.
such a piece, such a youthful piece about her.
And yes, and somebody said that, in other words, they know how the person lived by the expression on their face when they passed.
Exactly.
And she had nothing but peace and just
Yes, yes.
enlightenment. And
She looked
happiness.
just like that.
Yes,
Yes. That's really, really nice. So, so you are giving workshops, and we're out of time, but people can go on the website and check out the schedule, sharedheart.org.
And see about this book too.
And see what else you've written and so forth. There's a lot of good books. I would like to have read some more of your work. So I hope that was helpful out there and give you something to think about. So thanks for watching the show, and watch again.